But you know one thing I like? There is nothing better to debate than a complete dunce who is also arrogant. And look at Exhibit A. A complete total dunce who's also arrogant. Why? Because when they dotish and arrogant, that combination, they believe their lies and they're so dumb they put it on paper. This idiot called Stuart Smallpin Young did a 2-page op-ed entitled "The Truth About Petrotrin and Its Restructuring." Well, thank you, dum-dum. I am now going to show the people, by going through your nonsense and your lies and your misstatements, your untruths and your concoction, not only how dishonest you are, how incompetent you are, and that's why the people are suffering, the economy is suffering, the energy sector is at its lowest ebb possible. Let's go through what this Stuart Smallpin Young was so dumb to put down on paper. He wanted to start by saying that it's unfortunately become increasingly apparent that a complete disregard for facts and truth by certain public interests exists. This is the gentleman who came to politics because he defended the email-gate liar Keith Rowley. When Keith Rowley came with pieces of paper concocted that he had kept for 6 months, this was his attorney. He did so well defending Rowley, the pathological liar, that he became liar-in-chief number 2. This one is now talking about the truths. This one is the one who swore on the Bible to do the people work. And his brother moved from 0 public sector work to $4.2 billion. This is the one who, when he talking about, oh, Delcy Rodriguez, I didn't know when she came to talk COVID. I didn't know it was a sanction. Jet, I don't drill down. This one who's talking about truth. This is the one who said that UNC paying criminals to kill people so the PNM will look bad. This disgusting pathological liar said that. So let's now analyze. I have about 17 points that he made that I'm going to destroy. He said, publication of inaccurate and misleading information can be harmful to the public interest when we rely on the media for information to guide our decision making. That is the only true thing he said. Remember, I told you that the mass media, the Guardian, the Express, the Newsday, TV6, CNC3, 13 radio stations, that they fill your head with perception. He understands that. That's what the PNM understand. But hear the truth. Those mass media outlets are PNM. They push nonsense into your brain. So while you feel you have more money in your pocket because Kamala leave the fuel subsidy, while you feel you have more money in your pocket and your money could buy more when you go to the grocery under Kamala because she have an agricultural plan and she remove VAT off 7,000 items, when you dig in your pocket and you feel that you have more money because Kamala give you a laptop and save you 5,000 per child per laptop, and then Kamala and Tim Gopi Singh give you 133 million in textbooks per year when your children in school, when you dip in your pocket and you see that you have extra money because you're not busting your tire and mashing up your car on mad bad road, when Suraj Rambachan and Jack Warner had your roads moving smooth, when you turn on your tap and you have more money in your pocket because water flowing in your house 24/7 at 74% because Kamala was there. What the mass media does is say, but them Indian thief, UNC thief. PNM just try to say that the UNC thief so much, more than O'Halloran, Privat, more than Tesoro, more than Dr. Williams, more than what Gene Miles is talking about, more than any financial complex, Carani Racing Complex, more than in Mount Hope, more than Churchill Roosevelt, more than Project Pride, more than TGU plan, more than all this PNM corruption across the board, more than Bridgemans, more than APT James, more than Cutlass Vessels, more than Malcolm Jones and Petrotrin. And the media portrays that. He now come to say that the media tells untruths. The people who lie is the PNM. He went on, he wants to set the record straight now on Petrotrin and the closure. Let me first of all tell you all that what they said, what he said, what Rowley said, what Franklin Kahn said, take your mind back. They said that they're not closing Petrotrin, first and foremost. We run that video for me just to remind the people, because that was the first lie under the PNM that Rowley said the PNM is not closing Petrotrin. Let me remind you first. Run it.
But I want to talk to the mothers, the children, the neighbors, and all those who are attached to the Petrotrin business to make one clear statement to you. First and foremost, the government is not closing down Petrotrin. And in case you were just opening your fridge and you didn't hear that when you closed the door, let me repeat it. The government of Trinidad and Tobago is not closing down Petrotrin.
Well, Petrotrin closed going on 6 years. In August, September will be 6 years it closed. The refinery closed, Petrotrin closed. So now they're trying a new thing now. The new thing is to say that it was a restructuring, not a closure. Hello? Open your fridge door and close it. And your fridge closed? Go and open your house door and close it. Ain't it closed? Open your pepper bottle that you have there while you're watching Douglas Politics and eating your pilau. Open the pepper bottle. Close it. Ain't it closed? These PNM trying to tell you the refinery that closed, not closed. That's the ridiculous argument now. Back then, they were also saying they had to close it because tea lady was making exorbitant money. Carpenters and people, laborers, the salaries were totally bad. They attacked workers, remember that? They said that Petrotrin had to be shut down. Then the third thing they said, because let me tell you something, he so dotish, he don't remember the lies that they lie, so he come and tell the truth and make himself a liar. The third thing they said was that Petrotrin, the board of Petrotrin, under the new board, because the first board was fired with the fake oil thing, and the minister Oliveri was fired because they did an audit into fake oil. The board under Winfred Espinay, Keith Christopher Rowley said, the board told the cabinet to shut down Petrotrin. Remember that? Winfred Espinay went in labor court under oath and said the board did no such thing. His board, his PNM board, his Petrotrin board under Winfred Espinay never told the government to shut down Petrotrin. Well, this one come and admit now in this thing as we go through that yes, it was the cabinet decision, not the board. Nobody told them. So let's go through now forensically and deal with this dishonest, dotish, arrogant clown. Not for the first time, he talks about Mr. Maraj. Chairman and board members are talking about chairman and board member reports that allegedly advise the government against closing the refinery. And he does not this without being able to point to a single item of fact in support of these assertions. He cannot identify a single chairman, board, or report in support of his frequent assertions. Really? Winfred Espinay, under oath, on the record of the labor court, said, and I quote, this board of Petrotrin never advised the government to close down Petrotrin. That one, Winfred Espinay. Then you had the Solomon report. Go and read it, you big dunce. The Lashley report and the McKinsey report. $64 million paid to experts. And not one of those reports said to close down Petrotrin. This one, part 3. He said, it is an irrefutable fact that Petrotrin was restructured. You could call it and play semantics, whatever. Petrotrin was closed down. There was a refinery employing 5,364 permanent workers and 6,120 temporary workers. PNM closed it down, and all the workers went home. So no amount of new language, bright language, or obfuscation by dishonest clowns could change that. All you could call it restructure, destructure, pre-structure. It closed down, shut down, people lost their jobs, and fence line communities suffered. Small Pin continued. This restructuring was actually conducted in 2018 by the then chairman of Petrotrin, Mr. Wilfred Espinay, and his board in conjunction with the decision making of the cabinet. The board was fully involved at every step of the way. Yes, the board was fully involved at every step after the cabinet shut it down. The board never said shut it down. You see how he think he's smart? Dunderhead should never write thing in paper. The board had to carry out the instructions of the cabinet. The cabinet decided to shut down Petrotrin, shut down the refinery. It is shut down. Send home workers. People still suffering. Families suffering. And the whole Southwest Peninsula is in shambles. The decision to shut down Petrotrin, the refinery, was a cabinet decision. Let me read that again. Rowley said we're not shutting down Petrotrin. Rowley said Espinay and his Petrotrin board told the cabinet, advised the cabinet to shut down Petrotrin. That was what Rowley said. Hear what Stuart Smallpin says now in 2024. The decision to shut down the refinery was a cabinet decision. It is also an irrefutable fact that the shutdown of the refinery and the restructuring of Petrotrin's operation averted a major economic crisis. Well, let's go and see about that indisputable fact, because they didn't avert no crisis. We are in a crisis. We cannot get foreign exchange. I just read for you that businessmen are worried. They cannot even expand, even though consumers want the product. They can't get foreign exchange. I wanted to go Dominica. I can't get foreign exchange. You have to go in the line and get 200 US only. Businesses, all your credit cards cut down. We are in a foreign exchange crisis, and he talking about they averted the crisis. So what we in now, these people, I tell you, there is nothing sweeter than a dum-dum who arrogant, and Stuart Smallpin Young fits that bill so perfectly. What an idiot. He continued. He talked now, and he went through about productivity at Petrotrin, at the land and the oil, the crude oil production to fuel and to put raw material at Petrotrin. And he gave you all the numbers. But what he didn't say and what truth he didn't put is that under Kevin Ramnarine and Kamala Prasad Bisesa, oil production from 2010 upwards went up to 2014, up 76,000, up to 94,000 barrels a day. And under his government, by 2017, that had dropped down to 50,000 barrels a day because the PNM was not invested in maintaining the oil fields, in maintaining and doing the work that was necessary to keep the productivity every day up. So the productivity went down. So because of the PNM incompetence, you then had a component that was increasing of imported crude to be refined, which would cut your margins. What he also said, and what I would put a pin, small pin right here too. But small pin, if there was no fake oil, if AV oil was producing incredible amounts of oil like the PNM Franklin Can, who went into the parliament and said, look at this company, AV Oil, as his daughter was in the PNM Senate upstairs. Look at these vast increases in production. If that was not fake oil, then why shut down Petrotrin? Because if whatever technology Nazim Bash and AV Oil was doing, if that was real legitimate oil coming up, then we would not have needed to import. The margins would not have been reduced. We could have given Nazim Bash and AV Oil more acreage. We could have used the technology in other fields to boost production and get production up to 150,000 barrels of oil per day. Why you didn't do that? Huh? Or the oil wasn't there? Okay. Furthermore, he then went on to say, which is quite a fallacy, that Petrotrin was producing, taking raw crude, refining it and making a loss. But you see, they play games. These are technical situations and accounting in different spheres. During 2012 to 2015, Petrotrin, the refinery, had to go through maintenance, heavy maintenance and so on. Therefore, the productivity would have diminished. The margins would have gone down because of the reduced capacity and so on to conduct maintenance that was overdue. So in the accounting, and when the margins for temporarily for a period of 2-3 years were lower, there was then a collapse of the oil price. So the profit margin went down. So because of external shocks, temporarily, the balance sheet, the profit and loss per barrel was diminished. But that is an operating issue. That's how you run the business. The business will pick back up. The margins will widen when the maintenance effects and the efficiency picks back up, and the cost of maintenance are worked out on the accounts, and then oil prices go back up globally, which happened with the Ukraine war. You would have been there earning foreign exchange. So that was, he's so stupid, that man say that. So abject total falsehoods. He then went on, and this is the beautiful part. The PNM, when they shut down Petrotrin, when they fired all the workers, they never mentioned the debt burden. The UNC was telling you the yoke around Petrotrin's neck was the debt. The neck was the debt burden. The debt burden that was thrust upon Petrotrin and the Petrotrin workers and the Petrotrin family by Malcolm Jones, executive director and executive chairman of Petrotrin between 2006 and 2010. That debt is what strangled the profits of Petrotrin. That debt was what was killing Petrotrin. So all the workers working hard and efficiently and moving forward, that debt was what was killing Petrotrin. Rowley, Franklin Can and Smallpin never mentioned the debt. They're always talking about, oh, the tea lady making too much, the workers making too much, the oil ain't good, there ain't enough production. They never said anything about the debt. Well, story jump out from Dodo head mouth now, because they forget when they just lie. Let me read now. The refinery was losing hundreds of millions of dollars. The concerns of asset integrity, the looming bullet payment of US 850 million, 5.8 billion TT, which had to be paid in August 2019. There were further difficulties associated with servicing another 750 million US debt. But you know what? He never says, and this is his truth, you know what he never says? That 850 million and that 750 million debt, that balloon payment, you know who was responsible for that? The PNM. Malcolm Jones with his projects like World GTL, with the gas to liquid optimization, the ULSD, the ultra low sulfur diesel project, all total complete failures. Malcolm Jones, but in his truth, in Smallpin's truth, he says the debt is what was strangling. But here say, who put the debt? It's PNM debt, it's Malcolm Jones debt. And you know what? You know who was Malcolm Jones' lawyer? You know who was Malcolm Jones' lawyer when Anand Ramlogan and Kamla Prasad Bisesa said you were irresponsible, you were wrong? Why did you take the taxpayers' money and dump it into these projects? And now the citizens, the future generations are suffering because of you. When Anand Ramlogan and Kamla had Malcolm Jones in court, this was Malcolm Jones' lawyer. Then the email gate, he went and defended the email gate liar. And the EBC gave PNM an extra hour for election and did not alert the UNC. And them squeaking the power, he went in the office of the Attorney General. And you know what PNM did under Faris Al-Rawi catsuit man? They withdrew the case of Malcolm Jones from the court. Based on whose advice? Vincent Legal Prostitute Nelson. I just want to pause right here and remind all you, remember what the Privy Council said about that decision by the PNM to withdraw £100 million case out of the court, and they announced it before. On what grounds? Because this PNM, and this was Malcolm Jones' lawyer, and now they come to admit Petrotrin closed down, and the pressure on it was because of PNM, Malcolm Jones' debt. That bad decisions, corrupt decisions, decisions that they could not account for, suffering Petrotrin, and the people had to pay for it because of PNM incompetence. Let me hear what the gentleman across the pond had to say. Run it.
Doesn't he go a bit further than that? I mean, isn't he saying this is all rather extraordinary? There was two pretty confident opinions from senior counsel that the case should be brought against Mr. Jones. It was. In September, there was a change of government. In October, Mr. Jones was appointed to the Standing Committee. Within days, there was a whisper in the papers that the case against him might be dropped. Within 10 days of that, Mr. Nelson is writing a very short opinion, and he's after all dealing with withdrawal of a $97 million claim, Mr. Rowe, saying that he thinks there's a reasonable likelihood of failure. In all those, and then it's withdrawn and discontinued, and all the costs have to be paid. Isn't that the basis for saying we must please see the basis upon which Mr. Nelson cast his pessimism, which led to discontinuance?
Well, my lord, it depends upon what one is concerned with. The way it's put by the appellant in his affidavit is, well, it's necessary to allay suspicions. But to put it bluntly, as we do put it bluntly in our case, bluntly the suspicion is that there's been some sort of political interference in all of this, such that for purely political reasons the new government has decided, irrespective of the merits of the case, that it ought to be dropped.
Mr. Rowe, 2 days before this opinion was written, was a Minister of Communication for the new government saying that the case against Mr. Jones was heading for dismissal?
There's reference to that. May I just pick up the reference to that?
Yes, certainly.
Give me a sec. I don't think it's 2 days before that. I think it's actually a little longer before that, my lord. The advice from Mr. Nelson is dated the 11th of October.
Yes, I've got the Minister of Communications down as the 9th, but
oh, no, you're quite
I may well be wrong.
You're quite right. It is the...
So what was the government, why was the government floating possible dismissal in advance of receiving this advice?
Now you're all remembering. This is why I tell you it's beautiful, it's lovely, it's amazing when a dum-dum, and a dishonest dum-dum, is so arrogant that he takes his time to write down what he believes to be true, which cannot be substantiated. So right there you see that this government under him, this was Malcolm Jones' attorney. They used Vincent Nelson, and then you know the Vincent Nelson indemnity then came after, and the 20-something million he get in legal fees. They settle a case and pay the full amount in fees and so on. Vincent Nelson. But this one here continued. He said, it's important, a proposal to deal with the $850 million bullet payment due in August 2019, and to do so without recourse to the Minister of Finance. So all of a sudden now, they're talking about the Minister of Finance and the debt burden, but let me also tell you at this juncture, they may pay off that $850 million bullet payment or $750 million bullet payment, you know. All they did was restructure the debt, for kick the can down the road. Your children still have to pay off that, and they come into Mama Gaio with fabricated accounts. Now you see why the Auditor General have a problem with these fellas. This one small pin continued. Eventually the board submitted, then he spoke about the Lashley report, because eventually they came and they asked Lashley and his team went and did a report which never said shut down Petrotrin, not one word. And I dare small pin Stuart Young, if he dare say that the Lashley report said shut down Petrotrin, Show the population. Eventually, Smallpin said the board submitted to cabinet that the only way that was possible to refinance the $850 million loan, refinance the Malcolm Jones loan, the PNM corruption loan, the PNM mismanagement loan, the only way it was to redo that is to restructure and move some of the assets and take away so that they could borrow again and refinance. That's all. But within that, they had to shut down Petrotrin. Why? Because of Malcolm Jones. Malcolm PNM Jones. PNM Malcolm Jones lawyer is Stuart Smallpin Young. Rowley took Malcolm Jones out of court, put him back before he died on an energy committee with Ken Julian. And that's why we are suffering. That's why your children are suffering. And that's why you have to get property tax from the PNM. They continued. The root of the problem that resulted in the refinery being closed was the unavailability of sufficient crude from Petrotrin Resources. Really? But I thought oil was coming up like magic down by AV. Well, if it was coming up by magic, how come the two things can't be simultaneously true? One. Secondly, oil available all over the world. You could buy and bring in oil easily and refine it, as the margins would have gone up. And then when the prices also went up, as they eventually did, we were not in a position to benefit because of the decision taken to shut down Petrotrin by the PNM. The refinery was a loss-making enterprise. Lie. That was sinking Petrotrin and threatened to bankrupt Trinidad and Tobago. No. What threatened to bankrupt Trinidad and Tobago was the PNM Malcolm Jones. This clown. This one. Who went and World GTL Total Bus Project. They had no money. He was executive chairman, which meant he had CEO powers, and he took decisions on his own to commit taxpayers billions of dollars, and nothing happened, and it suffered the people of Trinidad and Tobago. PNM's nastiness. And when the government of Kamala was trying to recoup some, couldn't even get back all. You, Smallpin, was this one lawyer. And when you came into government, you, Rowley and Alawi, with Maxi Coffee and the PNM, took this one out of court and celebrated him. The refinery was loss-making, not true. And the payment of $850 million debt in August 2019, which would have also triggered a call on a $700 million debt at the time, as well as the $450 million short-term debt. This would have required the Minister of Finance to find $2.something billion and take us to the IMF. That's what he said. They would have had to take us to the IMF. The PNM always likes to bring in the IMF and say, oh God, we did everything wrong. We make you lose money. We lost over billions of US. Our decisions were pathetic. But you know what? We didn't go by the IMF. Well, you know why you didn't have to go by the IMF? One word. Kamala. Because Kamala left 12.26 billion US in reserves. Kamala left 7.7 billion US in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. Kamala left import cover of 14 months. Kamala left throughout the economy stacks of savings for the people, so that you, despite your terrible decisions, had the buffer. And you know who the buffer was? Kamala. Kamala's policy, Kevin Ramnarine, the economy was booming and the savings that were made. So you didn't have to go IMF, but what you did was take our reserves, 12.26, down to now 5.8 billion. You took our heritage and stabilization from 7.6 down to 6.1 billion, when in 9 years it should have gone up to 16.5 billion US. You all have mismanaged and bankrupted Trinidad and Tobago. He continues, the face to save from the IMF program. The only reasonable option that was available to a responsible government that was concerned about the well-being of the country was to get out of refining business and restructure. That's your answer? Fire, look at this document here too. This was attained by Gary Aboud and Freedom of Information, and it shows that you lie. Petrotrin was never making no loss, and Petrotrin was a positive US earner, forex exchange earner. That's why all the businesses, 6,000 businesses shut down because of Malcolm Jones, PNM, Rowley and Small Pin. That's what it is here, and they tell lies. Look the information. You print a whole thing with no information. Your fantasy of fabrication. He continued. They were able to refinance the loan. That's what he boasting about. More interest, more pressure on future generations. But he don't care because he don't even take care of his children. He had a child in the house for 10 years, playing daddy, and when the child didn't do things correctly, that's not my child. That's who you're all dealing with. Now, and Coleman Butt admitted it, if you all remember Douglas Politics last month. Coleman Butt also, I don't have the video, it's alright. But I read the article and remember Coleman Butt admitted that the refinery, because they're talking about somebody coming to buy the refinery. But you know who negotiating, you know who observing, you know who meeting with whoever want to purchase the refinery? Rowley and Small Pin. Anywhere to have money to spend for your assets, somehow Rowley and Small Pin always there, meeting with CEOs, meeting with businessmen, meeting with manufacturers, meeting with contractors, meeting with goods providers. Is that good corporate governance? Is that how it works? That you put the decision makers right next to the goods providers? That's not fraught with corruption. That's not red flags. I wonder if sometimes in our country we just have no clue. And Rowley and them will call people thief. When Kamala was there, that one chairman for one board, one person for one board, one person only on one board. You had tender committees, all of that. You are this one man. Billing and spending everything from house to airport to hospital to fire station, community center, to president's house, to Red House, to prime minister residence, to sports stadium, to refurbishment, to rehabilitation, community centers, everything and anything this one man spending, and them calling people thief. This one continued. That's about it for this clown called Stuart Small Pin Young. So Small Pin, you say you like the debate. I just gave you 17 points. Why? Your truth about Petrotrin is fraught with lies, misinformation, lack of information, lack of numbers, just like your Minister of Finance cannot account for 3.49 billion in revenue that he want the Auditor General just to pump up the figures so all you don't look as bad as you all are, and that he cannot account for $1 billion in expenditure.